My fiancée refused to invite her best friend to our wedding. When I found out why, I ended our engagement. I'm 27. For 5 years, I believed I'd found my person, my partner, my future wife. We shared everything, or at least I thought we did. Dreams, plans, fears, and hopes. I worked overtime, saved every spare dollar I could, dreaming of giving her the wedding she always talked about. Looking back now, I can see all the warning signs I chose to ignore, all the red flags I dismissed as simple quirks of our relationship. When I finally got down on one knee 3 weeks ago, her eyes sparkled with tears, and her yes felt like the beginning of everything I'd ever wanted. We celebrated with champagne, called our families, and spent the evening planning our future together. But life is a funny way of showing you what's real and what's just an illusion you've created in your head. The first week of our engagement was pure bliss. Sarah couldn't stop staring at her ring, and we spent our evenings discussing venues and color schemes. She'd already started a Pinterest board months ago, something that should have perhaps given me pause, but at the time just seemed sweet and excited. Have you started thinking about the guest list? She asked one evening, curled up on our couch with her laptop. Wedding magazines were scattered across our coffee table, and she had that excited glow about her that I'd grown to love. Actually, yeah, I replied, settling down beside her with 2 mugs of hot chocolate, her favorite evening drink. I was thinking about your friend James. We should probably send his invitation early since he's out of state. I can even cover his travel expenses if that helps. The change in her expression was subtle but immediate. Her smile faltered, and she quickly looked back at her screen. Oh, I don't think that's necessary. I was thinking we should keep it more family focused, you know? Something in her tone made me pause. James had been her best friend for over a decade. She'd always said he was like family. In fact, she'd spent countless hours on video calls with him, sharing every detail of her life. Why wouldn't she want him at our wedding? That's surprising, I said carefully, setting my mug down. I thought you want him there. Have you told him about the engagement? Her silence was deafening. Sarah? I pressed, feeling a knot forming in my stomach. Have you even told James we're engaged? She wouldn't meet my eyes, instead fiddling with the edge of her laptop. I haven't found the right time. The knot in my stomach tightened. 3 weeks. She'd had 3 weeks to tell her supposed best friend about one of the biggest moments of her life. And she hadn't found the right time? Sarah, what's really going on here? Memories started flooding back, all the little moments I'd brushed aside. James confessed his feelings for her years ago, which she'd told me about as if it was ancient history. Their marriage in World of Warcraft, complete with matching character outfits and coordinated gear. She'd laughed it off when I'd first learned about it. It's just a game, babe. Don't be so serious. Then there were the countless times she'd run to him with every relationship problem, including ours. I remembered once overhearing her on the phone with him after we'd had a minor argument about household chores. He just doesn't understand me like you do, she'd said, not knowing I was within earshot. At the time, I convinced myself it was normal to have close friends to vent to. Now everything was taking on a different color. If you can't even be honest about our engagement, I said, my voice tight with emotion, maybe you shouldn't be engaged at all. It was immature, I know. A heat of the moment statement that I half expected her to challenge or argue against. Instead, she did something that shattered whatever trust remained between us. She picked up her phone, typed out a message while holding the screen where I could see it, and hit send. Just so you know, I was engaged, but not anymore. My heart stopped. The casual cruelty of that message, the way she wielded our relationship like a weapon, hit me harder than any physical blow could have. Get out, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Pack your things and leave. You're overreacting, she said, but her voice trembled. It was just a text. I was upset. Just a text? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You just told your best friend our engagement was over before we even had a proper conversation about it. How long have you been waiting for an excuse to run to him? Her face flushed red. That's not fair. James and I are just friends. Friends don't hide their engagement from each other. Sarah. Friends don't marry each other's characters in games and spend hours coordinating virtual outfits while their real life partner sits in the next room. Friends don't. Oh, here we go with the gaming thing again. She interrupted. You want to talk. You spend hours playing those stupid fighting games and watching grown men pretend to fight each other. The next few days were a blur of ignored calls and messages. My phone would light up with her name, then her mom's, then her sister's. I ignored them all. I needed time to think, to process, to understand how 5 years of my life had suddenly turned into this mess. My own mom got involved, calling me one evening in a state of frustration. You're being an idiot, she said bluntly, throwing away a 5 year relationship over something so ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, Mom, I argued, pacing my apartment. This isn't just about James or that text. It's about trust, about respect, about the fact that she couldn't even tell her supposed best friend we were engaged. People make mistakes when they're emotional, Mom said softly. Maybe you both need to cool down and talk about this properly. Finally, I agreed to meet Sarah at a local coffee shop to talk things through. The place was quiet, just a few other customers scattered around. When she walked in, she looked like she hadn't slept much, her usual confident stance replaced by something more hesitant. I need to see your messages with James, I said after we'd sat down, getting straight to the point. Her reaction was immediate and defensive. What? No. Those are private conversations. Private conversations about our relationship, about our engagement that you couldn't even tell him about. I deleted them all already anyway, she said quickly, looking away. Please, she pleaded, tears welling up in her eyes. It's not what you think. You're making this into something it's not. The waitress kept glancing our way, clearly concerned about the crying woman at table 7. After 20 minutes of back and forth, Sarah finally handed over her phone, her hands shaking slightly as she did so. What I found wasn't explicit cheating, but in some ways it was worse. Messages spanning months, filled with complaints about me, about how my love for gaming and wrestling made me less of a real man, how she felt stuck with me. But the worst part? She'd shared intimate details about my struggles after my dad passed away, including my performance issues in the bedroom. She'd painted me as some kind of failure, someone beneath her. She's like my therapist, she explained weakly when I handed the phone back, her voice small. Don't you complain about me to your friends? No, I said simply. I don't. I held out my hand. The ring, please. She twisted it off her finger slowly, as if each turn was painful. I pocketed it and stood up. Wait, she called as I turned to leave. Is this really it? 5 years just over? I looked at her one last time, really looked at her. The woman I'd planned to spend my life with, who I'd shared my deepest fears and greatest hopes with. The woman who had apparently been sharing those intimate details with someone else all along. You ended it when you sent that text, I said quietly. I'm just making it official. Her mom came by later that week to collect her things. Linda had always been kind to me, and even now, she didn't judge. She found me sitting on the floor of what had been our bedroom, looking at an old photo of Sarah and me at a concert. I'm so sorry. I broke down, crying like a child. I really thought. I know, sweetheart, she soothed, patting my back. I know. You'll always be family to me, no matter what. We spent hours talking that day. Linda shared stories about her own failed relationships before meeting Sarah's dad, about how sometimes love isn't enough if there isn't trust and respect to go with it. You're a good man, she told me as she was leaving. Don't let this make you bitter. The weeks that followed were a lesson in rebuilding. I threw myself into work, started hitting the gym regularly, and rediscovered old hobbies. I set up a little workshop in my spare room for fixing old gaming consoles, something Sarah had always complained took up too much space. I even bought tickets to the Royal Rumble, something I'd always wanted to experience live, but had put off because Sarah thought it was childish. You're really going to spend that much money to watch fake fighting? She'd always say, rolling her eyes. Now I realized how much of myself I'd been suppressing to make her happy. Then came the call from Linda, just before Christmas. We'd love to have you over for the holidays, she said warmly. Sarah won't be here. She's spending Christmas with James. My heart clenched. They're together now. I'm sorry, Linda said softly. I thought you should hear it from me rather than through the grapevine. I declined the invitation as gently as I could. After hanging up, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by the gaming consoles I'd been repairing as a new hobby. It was expensive, but there was something satisfying about fixing broken things. If only relationships were as straightforward as circuit boards. My friend came over that evening with pizza and beer. He'd been through his own rough breakup a few years back and seemed to know exactly what I needed. You know what the worst part is? I said, several beers in. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, all the times I made excuses for her behavior. That's normal, man, my friend replied, handing me another slice. Hindsight's a bitch, but you can't beat yourself up about it. You trusted someone you loved. That's not a character flaw. 2 months have passed since everything fell apart. The pain isn't gone, but it's different now, more like a dull ache than the sharp stab it used to be. I found solace in online gaming communities, in wrestling forums, in the simple joy of being true to myself. I've started streaming my console repair work on Twitch, building a small but supportive community of fellow gaming enthusiasts. It's not much, but it's something that's purely mine, something I don't have to apologize for or hide. Yesterday, I found the engagement ring in my drawer while looking for a screwdriver. I turned it over in my hands, remembering the hope I'd felt when I bought it, the way the jeweler had stayed late to help me choose it. Then I listed it for sale online. Some stories aren't meant to have happy endings, at least not in the way we initially planned. But that's okay. I'm learning that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. That sometimes the best thing you can do is let go of the story you thought you were writing and start a new one. I don't hate Sarah, and I don't wish her ill. I hope she and James find whatever they're looking for in each other. This morning, I woke up and, for the first time in weeks, I didn't immediately think about her. Instead, I thought about the console repair stream I planned, about the wrestling event I'm attending next month, about the cooking class I signed up for, because I've always wanted to learn but never had the time. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time. Life might not be a fairy tale, but it can still be beautiful in its own way. And maybe, just maybe, my best chapters are still ahead of me. After all, every good story has its plot twists. It's how the hero handles them that matters. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. My girlfriend faked a pregnancy to force a proposal, so I exposed her lies in front of everyone at our engagement party. I'm 28, male, and for a while I thought I had a pretty normal life. Got a good job, had a decent place to live, and was in a relationship with my girlfriend, Em, who's 27. We'd been together for 3 years. It wasn't perfect, but it was comfortable. We talked about marriage here and there, but I was in no rush. I wanted to make sure everything was right, emotionally, financially, all that stuff. Em, not so much. She's always been the type who wants things now. She's impatient, ambitious, and once she gets something in her head, it's like she can't let go until it happens. For the past year or so, she'd been dropping hints about getting engaged. At first, it was subtle, showing me rings she liked, mentioning her getting engaged, that kind of thing. But then it became more direct. She straight up asked, "When are we getting engaged?" And I'd always tell her, "I'm not ready yet." I wasn't lying. I just didn't feel like it was the right time. I didn't want to be rushed into something so serious. But Em didn't like that answer. She started saying I wasn't taking the relationship seriously, that I was wasting her time, and that she wasn't going to wait around forever. She'd make these comments every chance she got, making it sound like I was the bad guy for not proposing after 3 years together. I tried explaining my side, how I wanted to be sure we were both in a good place before taking that step. But every conversation would just end with her pissed off and me feeling like crap for disappointing her. Then 2 months ago, Em came to me with some big news. She was pregnant. At first, I didn't know what to think. We weren't actively trying, but I guess accidents happen, right? So I did my best to stay calm and told her we'd figure it out together. But here's the thing. I still wasn't ready to propose. I wasn't going to let a pregnancy force me into marriage. I figured, let's take things slow, talk things out, and see how we can work through this. She didn't take it well. She wanted me to react differently. I'm sure she was expecting me to freak out or maybe even drop down on one knee right there. But that wasn't happening. I needed time to process, and that wasn't the answer she wanted. Over the next few weeks, things started getting weird and became more distant, moody, and honestly kind of dodgy. She told me she had gone to the doctor for a checkup, but when I offered to go with her next time, she'd brush it off, saying it wasn't necessary. Something didn't feel right, but I didn't want to push too hard. I figured maybe it was just stress or hormones or whatever, but then the pressure really started. She told me we had to get engaged for the baby's sake, that it would be embarrassing and shameful to have a child out of wedlock. She went on and on about how our families would be disappointed, how people would judge us, and that we needed to make things right. I listened, but I wasn't about to change my mind just because she was pregnant. Marriage isn't something you rush into because of a situation. Then, one day, she mentioned we should announce the pregnancy at her family's upcoming gathering. Oh, and maybe it would be a good time to announce an engagement too. I almost laughed in her face. She was pushing so hard, it was ridiculous. But something about it all was gnawing at me. Her behavior, the weird evasiveness, it didn't add up. That's why I decided to dig deeper. One night, while she was in the shower, I went through her phone. And yeah, I know, that's not the best move, but I had to know if something was up. And sure enough, there it was. A message to her best friend that hit me like a ton of bricks. Don't worry, babe. Once he proposes, you can tell him you miscarried or something. You just need to get that ring first. I sat there reading it over and over, my stomach turning. She wasn't pregnant. It was all a setup, a scheme to get me to propose. She was going to fake a miscarriage after locking me down with a ring. I felt sick. I had my suspicions. But this was a whole new level of manipulation. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I decided to let her dig her own grave. I played along, pretended like I was coming around to the idea of proposing, even started asking her about rings again. The whole time she had no idea I knew her secret. Finally, the day of the family gathering arrived. Em was on cloud nine. She thought everything was falling into place perfectly. She had no clue what was about to happen. At the gathering, she started dropping hints to her family, teasing them with the idea of a big announcement. Everyone was curious, waiting for us to say something. Eventually, Em gathered everyone in the living room and gave me that look, the one that said, "This is it, propose now." So I stood up in front of her entire family. I was nervous, but for all the wrong reasons. Everyone was watching me. Em was practically glowing with excitement. And I started with the words that I knew would pull them all in. "Hey everyone, I have some big news," I said, pausing for effect. "Em and I are expecting a baby." The room exploded with excitement. Em was beaming, thinking she'd won. She grabbed my hand, squeezing it like she was ready for the next part of her plan. "And I've decided to take another big step today," I continued, pulling a small ring box from my pocket. Em's face lit up, and she looked ready to cry tears of joy. But I wasn't done. "I've decided to propose," I said, and then paused again. "That Em tells everyone the truth." The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Em's face went from happiness to absolute shock. "You see," I continued, turning to the crowd, "there is no baby. There never was. Em faked a pregnancy to get me to propose to her." Em stood frozen, her face drained of color as everyone stared at her. Her family looked horrified, confused, and some were whispering to each other in disbelief. "Em, you want to explain yourself?" I asked, looking her dead in the eye. She stammered. It's not like that. I was going to tell you. No, you weren't." I cut her off. "You were planning on miscarrying after getting the ring." I read the messages. Her best friend, who had been part of the scheme, looked like she was about to pass out. Em's mom finally broke the silence. "Is this true?" she asked, her voice shaky and filled with disappointment. Em couldn't even meet her mom's eyes. She just stood there, silently nodding, her face red with shame. I turned to everyone and said, "So no, I'm not proposing. In fact, we're done. I can't be with someone who would pull a stunt like this." And with that, I put the ring box on the table, turned around, and walked out. Em tried to follow me, but I didn't stop. I got in my car and drove away, leaving her and her lies behind me. Of course, it didn't end there. She blew up my phone for days after. At first, it was endless apologies. Texts saying how sorry she was, how she didn't mean to hurt me, and that she was just scared of losing me. She said she loved me, that she'd do anything to fix things. When that didn't work, the tone changed. She started blaming me, saying I was the one being unreasonable. "It was just a lie to get you to propose," she wrote in one message. "You're overreacting. People do stuff like this all the time. We can still make this work." I ignored it all. I blocked her on everything. I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses. But that didn't stop her. She started showing up at my apartment, banging on the door, begging me to talk to her. I'd look through the peephole and see her standing there, all teary-eyed and desperate, trying to play the victim. One night, she even stayed outside for hours, hoping I'd let her in. But I didn't budge. Then she started trying to make me look like the bad guy. She went to my friends, telling them I led her on, and that I overreacted to a harmless lie. She tried to spin it like I was the asshole for dumping her. Some of them bought into her story at first, but once I explained what really happened, they all backed off. They knew I wasn't the kind of guy to make stuff up like that. It wasn't enough, though. She wasn't done yet. One day, she showed up at my work. She walked right into my office, demanding to talk to me. My coworkers had no idea what was going on. I had to step out, embarrassed as hell, while she stood there, crying and pleading in front of everyone. She tried to make it sound like I was abandoning her and our baby, even though I'd already told her I knew the baby was a lie. She didn't care. She wanted the attention, wanted to make me look bad. I kept my voice low, tried to avoid a scene. You need to leave," I said, teeth clenched. She just kept going, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What kind of man walks out on the mother of his child? You think you could just treat me like this?" I could feel my co-workers watching. A few of them looked shocked, others just uncomfortable. I leaned in close and whispered, "You and I both know there's no baby. Stop playing this game." That's when she finally lost it. "You're a piece of shit," she shouted, her voice breaking. "You never loved me, did you? You just strung me along, making me think we had a future. You're going to regret this." I was done. I stepped back and told her if she didn't leave immediately, I'd have security escort her out. That was enough to get her to storm off, but the damage was done. My coworkers didn't say much, but I knew they were talking about it afterward. There wasn't much I could do, but hoped the truth would come out in time. After that, she took things up a notch. She reached out to my parents, telling them I was abandoning her during a pregnancy crisis and that she didn't know how to handle it. My mom, being the sweet, trusting person she is, agreed to meet with her. M spun a sob story, crying about how she'd made mistakes but loved me and wanted to make things right. She didn't mention the fake pregnancy at all, just that we were having problems because I didn't trust her. When my mom called me later that day, I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "She seems really upset," she said. "Is there any way you two can work this out?" That's when I told her everything. I explained how M had faked the pregnancy, how I'd caught her plan to trick me into proposing, and how she was now trying to make me the bad guy. My mom was horrified. She apologized for even giving M the time of day and promised not to let her manipulate her again. But the fact that M had tried to involve my family like that, it pissed me off. Still, M wasn't done. She showed up at my dad's house the next week, and then my sister's place after that. She was on a full-blown campaign to paint herself as the victim and make me look like a heartless jerk. She even got a couple of our mutual friends to believe her story, at least for a little while. One of them, G, called me up saying, "Man, MS really going through it. I don't know what happened between you two, but you might want to hear her out." I didn't even waste time. I told G everything straight up, no holding back. The fake pregnancy, the manipulation, the ambush at the family gathering, everything. G was silent for a moment, and then I heard him say, Jesus Christ. I had no idea. After that, MS hold on our friends started to fall apart. Word spread, and soon everyone knew the real story. But even with most people backing off, she still wasn't done. The final straw came during Thanksgiving. My family was having a quiet dinner, when out of nowhere, the doorbell rang. My dad went to answer it, and when he came back, he had a weird look on his face. It's Em, he said, glancing at me. I froze. What? What the hell is she doing here? She brought a pie, said she wanted to talk. I stood up, furious. I marched to the door, and sure enough, there she was, standing on the porch with a pie in her hands like it was a normal day, like she wasn't a complete psycho who'd been harassing me for weeks. Em, you need to leave, I said, barely holding in my anger. It's Thanksgiving, she replied, and like everything was fine, I thought maybe we could talk things out. It's a time for forgiveness, right? No, I said flatly. It's not happening. We're done. You're not welcome here. She blinked, her smile fading. You're really going to do this? In front of your family? On Thanksgiving? Yeah, I am, because this is over. You don't get to keep showing up like this, pretending everything's okay. Now leave. She stared at me, her eyes flashing with anger, but she could see I wasn't budging. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked back to her car, leaving the pie on the porch. I slammed the door and went back inside, shaking with anger. That was it. After Thanksgiving, I knew I had to take real action. The next day, I filed a restraining order against her. I didn't want to go that route, but she left me no choice. She wasn't just manipulating me anymore. She was stalking me, harassing me, and refusing to let go. Once the order was filed, everything finally stopped. No more texts, no more surprise visits, no more guilt trips. I was free. It took me a while to process everything that had happened. I couldn't believe how far she'd been willing to go to get her way, how entitled she felt to control my life. It wasn't just about the fake pregnancy. It was the lies, the manipulation, the way she tried to twist the truth to make herself the victim and me the villain. She wasn't looking for love or a real relationship. She was looking for control. Looking back, I realized I dodged a bullet. I learned a hard lesson about trust and manipulation, and I'm still working through some of the emotional damage. But one thing's for sure, I'm never letting someone like that into my life again. So, yeah, that's my story. If you ever find yourself with someone who feels entitled to your time, your life, or your decisions, get out. Don't stick around waiting for things to change. People like that don't change. They just find new ways to control you. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.
I need to tell you about the year I almost married into a disaster I didn't even see coming. My name's Jake. I'm 28, work as a software engineer for a mid-sized tech company in Denver, and up until about 6 months ago, I thought I had my life pretty well figured out. Good job, decent apartment, solid group of friends I'd known since college. The kind of crew where you don't have to explain yourself because they already know the punchline before you finish the joke. I met Chloe at a coffee shop near my office. She was working remotely, had her laptop open with about 15 tabs running, and when her order got called wrong for the third time, she just laughed it off. That's what got me, actually. The patience. The easy smile. I was so tired of Denver dating where every conversation felt like a job interview where both people were lying on their resumes. We started dating casually. Nothing dramatic, just the normal progression. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into weekends where we'd meal prep together and watch her try to explain why The Bachelor was actually very strategic, while I pretended to follow along. She was sweet, thoughtful. The kind of girlfriend who'd remember I mentioned liking a specific beer 3 weeks ago and surprise me with a 6-pack. For the first few months, everything was easy. That should have been my first warning sign, honestly. Nothing good is ever that easy. The cracks started showing around month 4 when I finally met her childhood friends, Morgan and Lexi. I remember the exact moment I knew something was off. We were at this bar in Lodu, one of those places with exposed brick and overpriced craft cocktails that taste like someone liquefied a garden. Chloe was so excited for me to meet them. She'd been talking them up for weeks. My girls, she called them. We've been best friends since middle school. They're going to love you. Morgan showed up first. Mid-20s, professionally done hair, engagement ring so big I was genuinely concerned about her hand's structural integrity. She gave me a once-over that felt like a home inspection, then decided I was acceptable enough to acknowledge. "So you're the engineer," she said, like it was an accusation. "Chloe says you're doing well." "I do okay," I said. "That's good. You need to be doing well if you're going to keep up with our girl." She laughed, but there was something sharp underneath it. "Chloe deserves someone stable, you know, someone who can take care of her." Chloe jumped in, clearly uncomfortable. "Morgan, stop. Jake's great. Tell her about the project you're working on, babe." Before I could answer, Lexi arrived. She had a 2-year-old kid balanced on her hip and a look on her face that suggested she'd rather be literally anywhere else. Her boyfriend Tyler trailed behind her, carrying a diaper bag that looked like it weighed more than the child. "Sorry we're late," Lexi said, not sounding sorry at all. "Tyler took forever getting Noah ready." Tyler opened his mouth, probably to defend himself, but Lexi was already handing him the kid and heading to the bar. "I need a drink. Tyler, you got him." I watched Tyler nod, shifting the toddler to a more comfortable position, and something about the whole interaction just felt wrong. Not wrong like abusive, but wrong like watching someone slowly disappear into a role they never auditioned for. The evening got progressively weirder. Morgan spent 20 minutes showing us her wedding Pinterest board, talking about the $10,000 engagement ring her fiancé Mark had saved up for, then casually mentioned she'd made out with some guy in the bathroom of a club the previous weekend. "It didn't mean anything," she said, laughing like it was a funny anecdote about getting the wrong coffee order. "What happens in the club bathroom stays in the club bathroom, right?" I looked at Chloe, waiting for her to react, to say something, anything. She just laughed along. "You're so bad, Morgan." That was it. "You're so bad." Like Morgan had told a slightly off-color joke instead of admitting to cheating on her fiancé a month before their wedding. Lexi, meanwhile, spent the entire night talking about her upcoming girls' weekend in Vegas. When Tyler gently suggested that maybe they should discuss the budget first since Noah needed new shoes, Lexi rolled her eyes so hard I was worried she'd strained something. "It's an open relationship, Tyler. We've talked about this. You can go out too if you want." "I can't go out," Tyler said quietly. "Someone has to watch Noah." "Well, that's your choice." It wasn't a choice. That much was obvious to anyone paying attention. But Lexi said it with such conviction that I almost believed her myself. I made it through dinner by drinking more than I should have and perfecting my neutral "uh-huh" response. When we finally left, I waited until we were in my car before saying anything. "Your friends are interesting," I tried. Chloe lit up. "I know, right? Aren't they great? I've missed them so much. We used to do everything together before I moved for work." Morgan seems intense. "Oh, she's always been like that. She just likes to have fun. Mark knows what he's getting into." I wanted to ask if Mark actually knew. If he knew that his fiancée, the woman he just spent $10,000 on, was having fun with random guys in club bathrooms. But I didn't. Because it was early in the relationship, and I didn't want to be that guy who caused drama over his girlfriend's friends. Big mistake. The next few months were a masterclass in watching someone I cared about slowly lose her grip on reality. It started small. Chloe would get texts from Morgan or Lexi and suddenly need to help them with something. The something was usually covering for one of them. Morgan needed an alibi for a night she'd told Mark she was with Chloe, but was actually at some guy's apartment. Lexi needed Chloe to tell Tyler she'd been with her when she was actually at a club until 3 a.m. At first, Chloe seemed uncomfortable with it. She'd hesitate before texting back, would look at me like she wanted permission to say no, but she never did. And after a while, the hesitation disappeared entirely. I remember one specific night that broke something fundamental in how I saw her. We were having dinner at my place. Chloe's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned, then started typing rapidly. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, just Morgan. She needs me to do her a favor. What kind of favor? Chloe looked up, and for just a second I saw something I hadn't seen before. Guilt. Real, actual guilt. Mark's been asking questions about last weekend. Morgan needs me to tell him we were together at my place watching movies and drinking wine. Were you? What? Were you together last weekend watching movies? The silence stretched out long enough that I had my answer before she even opened her mouth. She's my best friend, Jake. She needs me. She needs you to lie to her fiancé. It's complicated. It's not complicated, it's dishonest. Chloe's face hardened. You don't understand their relationship. I understand that Mark's about to marry someone who's been cheating on him, and you're helping her hide it. It's not my business what Morgan does. But it is your business to lie for her. We fought about it for 2 hours. Not the productive kind of fight where you work through things, but the circular kind where you're both just repeating the same points at increasing volumes until someone gives up. I gave up first because I had to be at work early, and also because I realized something terrifying. I couldn't change her mind. She genuinely believed that loyalty to her friends meant helping them destroy their relationships. The breaking point came a few weeks later. Morgan and Lexi had convinced Chloe to start an OnlyFans account. As a joke, they said, just to see how much money you could make. They framed it as empowerment, as taking control of her sexuality, as a fun experiment between friends. I found out when Chloe accidentally left her laptop open and I saw the browser tabs. When I asked her about it, she got defensive immediately. It's my body, Jake. I can do what I want with it. Of course you can, but can we talk about why you're doing it? Because Morgan and Lexi think it would be fun. And honestly, the money could be good. Do you want to do it? She paused. What do you mean? I mean, if Morgan and Lexi weren't pushing this, would you have thought of it yourself? Another pause, longer this time. They're not pushing me, they're supporting me. Right. I knew then that I was done. Not angry done, not betrayed done, but the kind of done where you realize you've been trying to hold on to something that's already gone. Chloe wasn't the person I'd met in that coffee shop. Or maybe she was, and I'd just been too optimistic to see it. The truth is, she never cheated on me. Never even came close, as far as I know. But she was actively helping her friends cheat, lie, and manipulate their partners. She was sitting at a table with 3 trashy people, which meant there were 4 trashy people at that table. You can't claim to be a good person while enabling bad behavior. That's not how morality works. I ended it cleanly. No drama, no accusations, no truth bombs about her terrible friends. I just told her I was going through some personal stuff and needed space to work on myself. It was cowardly, maybe, but I didn't want to deal with the fallout of telling her the real reason. I just wanted out. Chloe cried. She asked if there was anything she could do. I told her no, that it wasn't about her, that I just needed time. She eventually accepted it, though I could tell she didn't understand. We stopped talking. I deleted her number, unfollowed her on social media, and moved on with my life. Or at least I tried to. For about 2 weeks I felt great, lighter, like I'd been carrying extra weight and finally put it down. My boys noticed immediately. You're less stressed, my buddy Connor said one night when we were grabbing beers. What happened? Broke up with Chloe. Finally, my friend Davis said, dude, we were taking bets on how long you'd last with her. You were. You were miserable every time you hung out with her friends. It was painful to watch. Why didn't you say anything? Connor shrugged. Bro code. You don't tell a guy his girlfriend sucks unless he asks. You ask, we answer. Well, she's gone now. Good, you deserve better than someone who makes you that stressed. That should have been the end of it. Clean break, lessons learned, move forward. But then I started thinking about Mark. I didn't know Mark. We'd never met. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. This guy who'd saved up $10,000 for an engagement ring, who was planning a wedding, probably already sent out save the dates, booked a venue, told his family about this woman he loved, and she was destroying him. Morgan was going to marry him, take half his stuff eventually, and keep cheating the entire time. And when it all fell apart, Mark would be left wondering what he did wrong, questioning himself, paying for a divorce lawyer while Morgan moved on to her next victim. I kept thinking about that engagement ring. $10,000, that's not impulse buy money. That's I worked overtime for months money. That's I care about making her happy money. And she was in a club bathroom with some random guy the next weekend. It ate at me. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about it. I'd be at work staring at code, and suddenly I'd remember Morgan's laugh when she told that story. The casual cruelty of it. After about a month of this, I made a decision. I was going to tell Mark everything. It was insane. I knew it was insane. This wasn't my business. Mark was a stranger. I had no obligation to blow up his life just because I had information he didn't. But here's the thing. If I were Mark, I'd want to know. I'd want someone to tell me before I signed a marriage certificate and legally tied myself to someone who'd been betraying me from day one. So I did the research. Chloe had mentioned Mark's last name once in passing. Between that, Morgan's Instagram, which was public, because of course it was, and some basic internet stalking, I found him on LinkedIn. Mark Henderson, 30 years old, operations manager at a construction company. From his photos, he looked exactly how I'd pictured him. Genuine smile, pictures with his family, the kind of guy who probably coaches Little League in his spare time. I sent him a message. Hey Mark, I know this is going to sound weird, but I need to talk to you about something important. It's about Morgan. I used to date her friend Chloe, and there are some things you should know before the wedding. Can we meet somewhere in person? I promise I'm not crazy, just a guy trying to do the right thing. I sent it at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday and immediately regretted it. What if he thought I was insane? What if he told Morgan and then Morgan told Chloe and suddenly I had 3 angry women and their families after me? He responded at 6 a.m. I don't know you, but yeah, we can meet. When and where? We met at a quiet bar on the edge of downtown. The kind of place that's too dive-y for the after-work crowd but not dive-y enough to have character. Perfect neutral ground. I got there first, ordered a beer I didn't really want, and tried to figure out how to start a conversation that begins with, "Your fiancé is cheating on you." Mark walked in 15 minutes later. He was taller than I expected, built like someone who actually uses their gym membership. But the thing I noticed most was his face. He looked tired, not sleepy tired but soul tired, the kind of tired that comes from suspecting something's wrong but not being able to prove it. "Jake," he asked. I stood up. "Yeah, thanks for coming." We shook hands. He ordered a beer. We sat in uncomfortable silence for about 30 seconds before he broke it. "So, Morgan, yeah, what about her?" I pulled out my phone, pulled up the screenshots I'd saved. Text messages between Chloe and me where Chloe had casually mentioned covering for Morgan. Times, dates, places. Not everything, but enough. "I dated Chloe for about a year," I said. "Morgan and Lexi are her best friends, have been since middle school. I know who they are." "Right. So over the year I was with Chloe, I watched Morgan repeatedly cheat on you. And I watched Chloe lie to you about where Morgan was and what she was doing." I slid my phone across the table, let him read the messages. His face didn't change. He just read, scrolling slowly, taking it all in. When he finished, he pushed the phone back to me and took a long drink of his beer. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't." "Why tell me now? Why not months ago?" "Honestly, I didn't think it was my place. But then I ended things with Chloe and I couldn't stop thinking about what she told me. About you, about the ring." I paused. $10,000 is a lot of money to spend on someone who doesn't respect you. Mark laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I worked 60-hour weeks for 4 months to save up for that ring. Overtime every weekend. Morgan wanted a specific cut, a specific size. I wanted her to have exactly what she wanted. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm the idiot who didn't see it. You're not an idiot, you're trusting. There's a difference." We sat there for a while, not talking. Just 2 guys drinking beer and processing the fact that the people we'd cared about were fundamentally different than who we thought they were. Finally, Mark spoke. "I've suspected for a while," he admitted. Little things that didn't add up. She'd come home at weird hours, her stories wouldn't match up, she'd be defensive when I asked simple questions. But every time I'd get close to confronting her, Chloe would back up whatever story Morgan had told me. And I thought, well, if her best friend is vouching for her, maybe I'm just being paranoid. "You weren't being paranoid." "No, I wasn't." He finished his beer. What do I do now? That's up to you. What would you do? I thought about it, really thought about it. I'd end it, I said. Not because I'm vindictive or want revenge, but because if she's doing this before the wedding, she's going to keep doing it after. And then you'll have a mortgage together, maybe kids, and it'll be 10 times harder to leave. Better to cut the loss now while you still can. Mark nodded slowly. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have family, friends, people who can support you through this? My brother, a few buddies from work. Good, you're going to need them. We finished our beers. When the check came, I grabbed it before Mark could. My round, I said, least I can do. You didn't have to do any of this. Yeah, I did. If I were you, I'd want someone to tell me. We stood up to leave. At the door, Mark stopped and turned to me. Thank you, he said. Seriously, I know that took guts. Just doing what's right. Most people wouldn't. Then most people are cowards. We exchanged numbers. I told him to call if he needed anything, even if it was just someone to talk to who understood what he was going through. I drove home that night feeling like I'd either done something incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Maybe both. Mark moved fast. By the time Morgan got home that night, all her stuff was in garbage bags in the hallway of their apartment. Her clothes, her makeup, the boxes of wedding invitations they just received, all of it. Mark had also called the venue, canceled the wedding, and contacted a lawyer about getting the deposits back. The engagement ring was sitting on top of one of the bags with a note that just said, "Return this." Morgan lost her mind. I know this because Mark texted me updates throughout the night, partly to keep me informed and partly because he needed someone to talk to who wasn't screaming at him. She's calling me every 5 minutes. Won't stop crying. Now her mom's calling, asking how I could do this to their family. Chloe just texted saying I'm making a huge mistake and should talk to Morgan in person. Lexi says I'm ruining Morgan's life over a misunderstanding. I replied to each one with the same message: stay strong. You're doing the right thing. The nuclear fallout lasted about a week. Morgan's family tried everything. Her dad called Mark's work, tried to get him fired. Her mom showed up at his apartment, pounded on the door for an hour before the neighbors called the cops. Chloe and Lexi launched a coordinated social media campaign painting Mark as an abusive, controlling ex-fiancé who'd kicked Morgan out for no reason. But Mark held the line. Every time someone called to scream at him, he'd calmly explain what Morgan had done, offer to show them proof if they wanted it, and then hang up when they kept yelling. The turning point came that first weekend after the breakup. Mark had been holed up in his apartment, miserable and second-guessing everything. I called him Friday night. You doing okay? Define okay. Fair, you want to get out of there. My boys and I are hitting this brewery tomorrow night. You should come. I don't know, man. I'm not really in a social mood. You don't have to be social. You just have to show up and drink beer. We'll handle the rest. He agreed reluctantly. The next night, Mark met us at this brewery in the Highlands. My crew was already there. Connor, Davis, and my buddy Miguel, who'd driven in from Boulder specifically for this. I'd filled them in on the situation, kept it brief and factual. This is Mark, I said when he arrived. Mark, these are the boys. They treated him like he'd been part of the group for years. No awkward questions about what happened, no forced sympathy. Just genuine acceptance. Connor bought him a beer. Davis started telling this ridiculous story about a camping trip gone wrong. Miguel got him into a heated debate about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie. For the first time since I'd met him, Mark laughed. Really laughed. We were about an hour in when things got interesting. This guy walked into the brewery. Mid-30s, wearing a polo shirt 2 sizes too small for his biceps, the kind of aggressive body language that screams, "I started 3 fights in college and won 2 of them." He spotted Mark immediately, started walking toward our table with purpose. "That's Morgan's brother," Mark said quietly. "Jason." Connor stood up first. He's 6'3", played defensive line in college, and has the kind of presence that makes people reconsider their choices. Davis and Miguel stood up half a second later. I stood up last, mostly because I was blocked in by the table. We didn't say anything, didn't threaten, didn't posture, just stood there as a unit, forming a physical barrier between this guy and Mark. Jason stopped about 10 feet away. You could see the calculation happening in his head. He'd come here ready to defend his sister's honor, probably throw a few punches, be the hero of the story. But now he was facing 4 guys who clearly had no interest in letting that happen, and the math wasn't working out in his favor. "This isn't over," he said, which is what guys always say when they realize they're not going to fight. "Yeah, it is," Connor said. Not aggressive, just matter of fact. "Your sister cheated. Mark found out, that's the whole story." Jason looked like he wanted to argue, but then he just turned and left. We sat back down. Mark was staring at us like we just pulled him out of a burning building. "You guys don't even know me," he said. "Sure we do," Davis said. "You're the guy who got screwed over by a cheater and had the balls to walk away. That's all we need to know." "Plus," Miguel added, "Jake vouched for you. That's good enough for us." Mark looked at me. I just shrugged. "That's what friends do," I said. "I'm not your friend. We met once. You are now." The story should probably end there. Good guy gets saved, bad guys get what's coming to them, everyone moves forward. But reality doesn't do clean endings. The implosion of Morgan's life had a domino effect. First, the engagement ring. Mark had paid for it in full, which meant legally it was his to return. He took it back to the jeweler, got about 70% of the purchase price back as store credit, and immediately used it to buy himself a new watch. Then he posted a picture of the watch on Instagram with the caption, "New chapter, new time." Morgan saw it, lost her mind again, claimed he'd stolen her ring even though they'd never legally married. Then there was the wedding venue situation. Mark had put down the deposits using his money, which meant when he canceled, the refund went to him. Morgan tried to argue that she should get half, even though she hadn't contributed anything. Her lawyer told her she had no case. But the really spectacular collapse happened with Chloe and Lexi. See, when Mark left, Morgan lost her primary source of validation and financial stability. She'd been planning to be a stay-at-home wife, maybe work part-time doing something creative. Now she had to find a full-time job, rent her own apartment, and face the fact that everyone in their social circle knew exactly why Mark had left. She was furious. And when people get that kind of angry, they need someone to blame. She chose Chloe. According to the messages Mark forwarded me, because Morgan was still texting him, even though he'd blocked her number on his phone, and she'd started using apps that hide the caller ID. Morgan was telling everyone that Chloe had encouraged her to explore her options, and that this is all Chloe's fault for making me think it was okay. Chloe, understandably, was pissed. She fired back, pointing out that Morgan had been cheating on Mark for months before Chloe even knew about it, and all she'd done was cover for her a few times because that's what friends do. The texts between them got nasty. Personal attacks, old grudges from middle school, the kind of vicious honesty that only comes out when a friendship is actively dying. Lexi, trying to play mediator, ended up getting caught in the crossfire. She told Morgan to take responsibility for her own choices, which Morgan interpreted as taking Chloe's side. So Morgan turned on Lexi too, bringing up the fact that Lexi's open relationship was actually just Lexi cheating while Tyler stayed home with their kid. The group chat they'd had since middle school dissolved in about 48 hours. A decade plus of friendship gone. But the best part, the absolute poetry of the whole situation. Tyler left Lexi. I found this out through Mark, who found out through one of Morgan's angry texts where she was ranting about how everyone's life is falling apart. Apparently, Tyler had heard about Mark standing up for himself, about a guy who'd been in a similar situation deciding he deserved better, and something clicked. Tyler packed his stuff, took Noah, filed for custody, and moved back in with his parents. Left Lexi with the full rent on their apartment, no free childcare, and the sudden realization that open relationship doesn't mean much when you're single and broke. Lexi, predictably, tried to paint herself as the victim, posted this long thing on Facebook about how she was healing from a toxic relationship and learning to love herself. The comments section was brutal. Mutual friends who'd watched her treat Tyler like a live-in babysitter for years all came out with their real opinions. One girl wrote an entire essay about how Lexi had laughed about manipulating Tyler into the open relationship by threatening to leave him if he didn't agree. Lexi deleted the post after an hour and made her account private. 3 months after my conversation with Mark at that bar, the four of us, me, Mark, Connor, Davis, and Miguel, were having a barbecue at my place. It was one of those perfect Colorado afternoons. Sun out, mountains visible, just warm enough to be outside without a jacket. We'd grilled entirely too much meat, had entirely too much beer, and were arguing about whether the Broncos had any chance of being competitive this season. Mark looked different, better. He'd started working out more, not in the desperate I need to change everything way, but in the healthy I have energy again way. He'd gotten a promotion at work, started hanging out with his brother more, joined our weekly pickup basketball game. "You know what the weirdest part is?" he said at one point when the conversation had quieted down. "What's that?" I asked. "I'm happier now than I was when I was engaged, like significantly happier. How messed up is that?" "Not messed up at all," Connor said. "You were engaged to someone who didn't respect you. Now you're not. Math checks out." "I spent so much time trying to make her happy," Mark continued. "Making sure the ring was perfect, that the wedding plans were what she wanted, that I was earning enough to support the lifestyle she wanted. And she was just destroying me the whole time." "That's what manipulative people do," Davis said. "They make you think you're the problem, that if you just tried harder, were better, earned more, gave more, then they'd finally be happy. But they're never happy because the problem was never you." "You think they're happy now?" Mark asked. "Morgan, Chloe, Lexi." I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I said. "I don't think people like that are ever really happy. They're too busy chasing validation to actually build anything real." "Good," Mark said. Then he laughed. "Is that petty? That feels petty." "It's not petty," Miguel said. "It's justice. They destroyed relationships, manipulated people, and faced no consequences for years. Now they are. That's not petty. That's just cause and effect." Mark raised his beer. "To cause and effect, then." We all clinked bottles. "And to Jake," Mark added, looking at me, "for having the balls to do what most people wouldn't." "Just following the bro code," I said. "What's the bro code?" Miguel asked. "Help your brothers, even the ones you don't know yet." "I haven't talked to Chloe since I ended things. Blocked her number, blocked her on social media, removed her from my life completely. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she tried to blame me for ruining Morgan's life, and that she'd posted some rant about me being controlling and abusive. The people who actually knew me didn't believe her. The people who didn't know me well enough to judge weren't people whose opinions I cared about. Here's what I learned from the whole experience. 1. Your girlfriend's friends tell you everything you need to know about who she really is. If she's willing to sit at a table with people who have no moral compass, she doesn't have one either. It doesn't matter if she's never personally done the bad thing. Enabling bad behavior is its own form of bad behavior. 2. Silence isn't always golden. Sometimes the right thing to do is speak up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not technically your business. Mark deserved to know the truth before he signed a marriage certificate. Tyler deserved to see that other guys had stood up for themselves and survived. Sometimes being a good person means doing something awkward and difficult because it's right. 3. Brotherhood is real. I didn't know Mark before I sent that LinkedIn message, but the guys in my life treated him like family the second I told them he needed support. That's what actual friendship looks like. Not covering for each other's worst behavior, but showing up when someone needs help rebuilding. 4. Consequences are real. Morgan lost her engagement, her housing, her friend group, and her social standing. Lexi lost her free childcare, her financial stability, and her victim narrative. Chloe lost the moral high ground she'd been pretending to occupy. None of that happened because I was vindictive. It happened because their actions had natural consequences, and when Mark removed himself from the situation, the whole toxic structure collapsed. And Mark's doing great. He's dating again, taking it slow, being way more careful about red flags. He comes to our pickup games, joins us for beers, and generally acts like a guy who dodged a bullet and knows it. As for me, I'm single and not particularly bothered by it. After Chloe, I'm a lot more careful about who I spend my time with. I pay attention to who someone's friends are, what they enable, what they excuse. I look for consistency between what someone says they value and what they actually do. It's a higher bar. But I'd rather be alone than be with someone who makes me complicit in destroying someone else's life. Last weekend, Mark texted me out of nowhere. "Thanks for that day at the bar. Changed my whole life." I replied, "That's what brothers do." Because at the end of the day, that's really all there is to it. You see someone in trouble, you help them. You see someone being deceived, you tell them the truth. You see someone about to make a catastrophic mistake, you warn them. Not because you'll get anything out of it, but because it's the right thing to do. The bro code isn't about covering for each other's worst impulses. It's about helping each other be better, about building something real instead of enabling something toxic. Morgan, Lexi, and Chloe are probably somewhere right now, sitting in separate apartments, blaming everyone but themselves for how their lives turned out. Maybe they'll learn something from it. Probably they won't. But Mark's happy. Tyler's building a better life with his kid. And I'm sitting here on my deck with a beer and my dog, watching the sun set over the mountains, knowing I did the right thing. That's enough for me. My girlfriend told me nobody's holding you hostage at my work party. So I left. She's now calling me dramatic. I need some perspective here because everyone's telling me I overreacted, but I'm pretty sure I just did the smartest thing I've ever done in a relationship. My girlfriend Tora and I have been together for 3 years, living together for 1. She's a hairstylist and does social media content on the side, TikTok, Instagram, that whole thing. Very outgoing, loves attention, which I always thought was cool because I'm the opposite. I'm a back-end developer, pretty introverted, just got promoted to tech lead at my company. Here's the thing though. From early on, there were these moments that made me uncomfortable. We'd be at a bar and she'd be touching the bartender's arm while ordering, whispering in the DJ's ear, that kind of stuff. Whenever I mentioned it bothered me, she'd roll her eyes and say, "You're being jealous. I'm just friendly. You know I'm an extrovert." After hearing that enough times, I started thinking maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was being insecure or controlling, so I stopped bringing it up. Fast forward to last Friday night. My team lead Ben organized this rooftop game night at his apartment building to celebrate my promotion. This was huge for me. I've been working toward this promotion for literal 2 years, and I really wanted my coworkers to see that my girlfriend was as awesome as I kept telling them she was. Ben's neighbor Miles came up to help with the music setup. He's an indie musician, plays local bars. Tori recognized him from some show she'd been to and immediately switched into what I can only describe as mode. Touching his arm tattoos, laughing super loud at everything he said, taking photos with her hand on his waist. She was telling these inside jokes about the local music scene like they were old friends, completely ignoring me standing right there. I felt my face getting hot, but I tried to stay calm. When Miles went to grab more drinks, I leaned over to Tora and said quietly, "Hey, can we step outside for a second?" She didn't even look at me. "Why, what's wrong?" "Just, can we talk real quick, won't take long." Now she looked at me and I could see her expression shift. "Are you seriously doing this right now, at your work thing?" I kept my voice low. "I'm not doing anything, I just want to talk about what Lucas." Her voice had gotten louder. A few people nearby glanced over. "Can we please just step outside?" She laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. "Let me guess. You have a problem with me talking to Miles. You're uncomfortable." "Tora, come on, no, seriously." She crossed her arms. "If me just existing and talking to someone bothers you that much, nobody's holding you hostage, Lucas. You know where the exit is." The music was still playing, but I swear the entire rooftop went quiet for a second. Ben froze mid-conversation. Priya's eyes went wide. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. In that moment, I realized this wasn't the first time she dismissed my feelings. It wasn't even the 10th time, but it was the first time she'd done it in front of other people. The first time she'd literally told me I'd just leave. So I put my drink down, looked at her and said, "Thanks for being clear about that." Then I walked to the elevator and left. Didn't look back, didn't make a scene, just left. I went back to our apartment, packed a bag with my laptop, work clothes, and some essentials and called my buddy Marco. He picked me up within an hour. I've been crashing on his couch since Friday night. Tori got home around 2 a.m. and started blowing up my phone. "What are you doing? This is ridiculous, come home. You're destroying everything over one comment." I only responded once. "I'm just doing what you said. You told me I wasn't being held hostage and the exit was right there, so I left." Now her friends are texting me saying I'm being dramatic, that she didn't mean it literally, that I'm throwing away 3 years over nothing. My own mom even said maybe I should have tried to talk it through first. But here's what keeps running through my mind. She didn't say that in private. She said it loud enough for my coworkers to hear. She told me I wasn't being held hostage and could find the exit at the event celebrating my promotion. And honestly, the relief I felt walking into that elevator was bigger than any sadness. And that says more than I can put into words. So Reddit, did I overreact? Or was I completely justified? Update 1. Thanks for all the support on my last post. Things have gotten interesting. So Sunday night, Tori showed up at Marco's place. She'd been blowing up my phone all weekend and I'd been ignoring it, so she decided to show up in person. She was crying, makeup running down her face, asking Marco to let her see me. Marco is 63 and works as a paramedic. He blocked the doorway completely and said, "Lucas doesn't want to talk. You told him he wasn't being held hostage and could leave. He left. What's confusing about that?" She tried to push past him, insisting she needed to see me, that it was an emergency. He didn't move. "I deal with actual emergencies for a living. This isn't one. You need to go." She stood there for a few more minutes crying, then finally left. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times this had happened before. Not just the bar stuff, there were so many moments where she'd push a boundary, I'd react, she'd flip it around to make it my fault, and I'd end up apologizing. Then the boundary would get pushed even further next time. I'd been so deep in it I couldn't see the pattern. Monday at work was when things started to shift. Ben pulled me aside during our coffee break. "Hey man, I need to say something. The way Tori talked to you Friday night, that wasn't okay. Everyone heard it. You handled it way better than most people would have." Then Priya sent me a Slack message. "I thought you were going to stay and take it. When you walked to that elevator, I literally thought, finally. You deserve better than that." It hit me that my coworkers had been seeing what I'd been making excuses for. But here's where it gets messy. Tori started posting on Instagram a series of black and white stories with captions like, "3 years gone over one small argument. He abandoned me when I'm struggling with my mental health. Sometimes the person you think will always be there just walks away." The implication was clear. I'm cold, emotionally abusive, wouldn't let her be herself or have male friends. She was painting herself as the victim of a guy who just randomly left her. But some of the people from the rooftop party saw those stories, and they didn't let it slide. Priya commented on one. She screenshotted it before it disappeared. "Tori, I was there. You told him he wasn't being held hostage and to find the exit if he had a problem in front of his coworkers. He just did exactly what you said. Don't twist this." Ben commented on one of her actual posts that she'd forgotten to make private. "Just to be clear, Lucas didn't make a scene. You were the one who raised your voice in front of everyone. Don't rewrite what happened." But the comment that really shocked me came from Miles, the musician guy she'd been flirting with. Under one of her posts about her toxic ex-boyfriend, he wrote, "Don't know if this is about Lucas, but from an outside perspective that night, he politely asked to talk privately. You're the one who started yelling. Also, flirting with someone else while you're there with your boyfriend and then calling him insecure when he's uncomfortable. Not a healthy vibe." Tori deleted the stories, but screenshots had already spread through our mutual friend groups and somehow through my company's social circle too. The narrative she was trying to build, that I was some controlling asshole who abandoned her, collapsed before it could even take hold. Meanwhile, reality started hitting her in other ways. See, our apartment, internet, electricity, phone, family plan, Spotify, Hulu. I'd set all of that up and it auto-charged to my card. After I left, I called the bank and got a new card number. All those payments bounced. She was in the middle of a live stream when the internet cut out. She texted me, "Did you seriously cut off my internet? That's so petty." I sent one email response. I stopped paying for services I don't use anymore. Adults pay their own bills, Tori. Then there was the car insurance. She'd been on my policy because it was cheaper than getting her own. I removed her. She got the new quote for solo coverage and her premium nearly doubled. She texted, "You're making things financially hard for me on purpose." I didn't respond. By Wednesday, I got an email from our landlord about the lease. We're both on it, but I've been paying 70% of the rent because I made more. I told the landlord I was moving out and wouldn't be renewing when the lease ended. I'd pay my share until then, but that's it. Tori would either need to find a roommate, pay the full rent herself, or move. Her problem now, not mine. The crazy thing, I thought I'd feel guilty about all this. About the bills, the apartment, leaving her to figure it out. But I just don't. Every time I start to feel bad, I remember her saying I wasn't being held hostage and the exit was right there, said in front of my coworkers at my own celebration, and any guilt evaporates. Marco's been great. His couch is surprisingly comfortable, and yesterday he told me, "I've been waiting 3 years for you to realize she didn't respect you. I'm glad you finally saw it." To be honest, it kind of sucks, realizing everyone else could see how toxic that relationship was while I was being completely blind. But at least I see it clearly now. Better late than never, right? Edit. Someone in the comments asked if I was worried about her showing up at my office. Honestly, yeah, that crossed my mind. But I work in a secure building and I've already given the front desk a heads up. If she shows up, they know not to let her up. Update 2. I really hoped I wouldn't need to post again, but here we are. Last Thursday, Tori showed up at my office building. She told the receptionist she was my fiancée, we were never engaged, and needed to see me urgently. The receptionist called me and I came down to the lobby. I kept it short. I don't want to talk privately. If this is about the apartment lease or shared bills, send me an email. She tried to grab my arm. I stepped back. "Tori, we're done. You need to leave, or else I'll call the police." She left crying, but I figured that was the end of it. I was wrong. Yesterday she came back, but this time she wasn't alone. She brought Sarah, an HR business partner at my company who Tori had met at some networking event months ago. I guess the plan was to use a neutral third party to force me to listen. Sarah looked uncomfortable from the start, but Tori launched into her version of events. He left without saying goodbye. He ghosted me for days. He's been jealous and controlling for months, and when I finally stood up to him, he abandoned me. He cut me off financially. I just want him to talk to me so we can work this out. Sarah turned to me. "Is this how it happened?" I stayed calm and told her the truth. The whole rooftop story, how I asked to talk privately, how Tori responded by loudly in front of my coworkers, how I simply did what she told me to. Sarah looked at Tori. "Did you say that? Tell him he wasn't being held hostage and to find the exit," out loud in front of his coworkers. Tori stumbled. "I mean, what I meant was, if he couldn't handle my personality then." Sarah cut her off. "I'm not asking what you meant. I'm asking, did you say those specific words loudly in front of his colleagues?" Tori's face went red. She tried to pivot, but he just shut down after that. "He won't talk to me. He won't work on our relationship." Sarah's expression changed. She turned to Tori and said something I'll never forget. "He doesn't owe you another conversation after you said that." Adults take responsibility for their words. Then she looked at me. "If she keeps showing up at your workplace, report it to HR. This isn't a relationship issue anymore, it's a workplace boundaries issue." Before Tori could respond, Sarah looked at her one more time. "Tori, you asked me to come here as a favor, but you didn't tell me the full story. Don't drag me into your drama again." Tori was completely speechless. Security escorted them both out. I stood there in the lobby for a minute after they left, just processing what the hell had just happened. Then I went back upstairs. Ben stopped by my desk an hour later. "Heard there was drama downstairs. You good?" "Yeah, I think it's finally over." The relief I felt when I said those words was overwhelming. That evening, I went to look at an apartment, a small one-bedroom about 15 minutes from work. Clean, quiet mine. I signed the lease this morning. When I told Marco, he seemed almost proud. You know what the difference is between 3 days ago and now? 3 days ago, you were still on her leash. Now you're free. You can actually breathe. He's right. I've been sleeping better. Not great, but better. I'm not waking up wondering what I did wrong or how I'll be made to feel crazy today. I'm not checking my phone every 5 minutes to see what I'm being accused of now. The thing that keeps surprising me is how many people have told me they saw this coming. Coworkers, friends, even my sister called and said, "I never liked how she talked to you, but I didn't think you'd listen if I said anything." Part of me wishes someone had said something earlier, but another part knows I wouldn't have heard it until I was ready. Torai's been quiet since the office incident. No calls, no texts, no Instagram stories. I don't know if Sarah's words got through to her or if she's just regrouping. Honestly, I don't care anymore. The lease on our old place ends in 6 weeks. I'll pay my share until then, and after that I'm completely done. No more shared bills, no more connection. I'm moving into my new place next weekend. Marco's helping me move, and weirdly, Priya offered to help too. "I want to see you actually get settled in a place where you're not walking on eggshells," she said. That phrase stuck with me. Walking on eggshells. That's what the last 3 years felt like, and I didn't even realize it until I stepped off them. Final update. I really didn't think I'd be posting again. The last update felt like closure. But after what happened last week, I need to get this out. So about a month ago, I met someone. Ashley. Data analyst, calm, straightforward, completely different from Torai. We met at a friend's birthday party and just clicked. We'd been on maybe 4 or 5 dates. Nothing serious yet, but it felt healthy. Easy. I wasn't overthinking every word or waiting for the other shoe to drop. Last Tuesday, Ashley texted asking if we could meet up to talk. The message had that tone, you know. My stomach dropped, but I said sure. We met at the coffee shop near my apartment. She looked uncomfortable, wouldn't really make eye contact. Then she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did you really abandon your ex-girlfriend when she was struggling with her mental health? And were you controlling about who she could be friends with?" I just stared at her. "What? Who told you that?" "A woman named Torai reached out to me on Instagram yesterday. She said she was your ex." My blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. Ashley continued, "She sent me screenshots of texts between you two. Said you isolated her from her friends, got jealous if she talked to other guys, and then just left her without explanation. She was crying in her voice messages." Voice messages. Torai had sent Ashley voice messages crying about me. I took a breath. "Can I see what she sent you?" Ashley showed me her phone. The screenshots were real texts between Torai and me, but they were cropped. Carefully cropped. Like one from when I'd asked her not to go to her ex's birthday party because he'd been texting her inappropriately. In Torai's screenshot to Ashley, you could only see my message. "I really don't feel comfortable with you going to his party." It looked controlling. What you couldn't see was the context, the previous messages where I'd shown her the text from her ex literally asking her to leave me. I felt this weird calm come over me. I'd been patient for 3 years with Torai. I'd been the bigger person when I left. I'd stayed quiet when she tried to trash me on social media, but going after Ashley, that crossed a line I didn't even know I had. "Ashley, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. Then I'm going to make sure Torai never does this again." I told her everything. The rooftop party, the exact words Torai said, everything. Then I pulled out my phone. "I'm going to show you something I've never shown anyone." I opened my Google Photos. After the rooftop incident, I'd screenshotted some things. I showed Ashley all of it. Full text conversations showing the context Torai had cropped out. Screenshots of Torai's Instagram stories from after I left, the ones claiming I was abusive. The comments from my coworkers defending me. Text messages from Torai's friends after we broke up, some apologizing to me because they'd seen how she treated me. Ashley's expression changed as she scrolled. "Oh my God." She paused, looking back at me hesitantly. "I'm so sorry. I should have asked you first before." "No," I cut her off. "You did the right thing. If someone's ex reaches out with warnings, you should listen. I'm glad you're careful, but now I need to deal with this." Ashley looked worried. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Torai is." That night I did something I never thought I'd do. I made a detailed Instagram post. I didn't name Torre, but I didn't have to. I wrote, PSA, if my ex-girlfriend contacts anyone I'm dating or friends with to warn them about me, please know. 1. I have screenshots of the full context of any cropped text she might show you. 2. Multiple witnesses can verify what actually happened. 3. I left because she publicly told me to after I called her out for something that made me uncomfortable, so I did. 4. Trying to sabotage someone's new relationship months after you told them to leave is not concern, it's harassment. I've been quiet out of respect for what we had, but interfering with my life after we've been done for months crosses a line. This is your one warning. Then I tagged every single person who had been at the rooftop party, including Miles the musician, including Ben and the coworkers. Within an hour, people started responding. Ben commented, can confirm every word, Priya. Receipts don't lie, and so on. But here's where it gets interesting. The next morning, I woke up to my phone blowing up. Torre had apparently seen my Instagram story and responded with her own post. It's sad when people rewrite history to make themselves the hero. I tried to warn someone about a man's concerning behavior, and now I'm being harassed by him and his friends. This is exactly the controlling behavior I was worried about. The comments on her post were not what she expected. Because remember, a lot of my coworkers follow her from before, and people from the rooftop party, and even some of her own friends who'd seen how things actually went down. Top comments, girl, I was there, stop lying. You told him he could leave and he left. Now you're stalking his new girlfriend. That's concerning behavior. Torre, I know we're friends, but this is not it. You can't crop screenshots and call it warning someone. That's manipulation. But my favorite comment came from Miles. Just so everyone's clear, I'm the guy from the party she was flirting with. She never mentioned having a boyfriend. When he politely asked to talk privately about it, she told him to leave in front of everyone. Now she's playing victim. Nah, take accountability. Torre deleted the post within 3 hours, but the screenshots had already spread. Then came the fallout I didn't expect. Torre's TikTok account, where she has like 50K followers, started getting comments, people asking about the drama. She tried to ignore it, but then someone posted a stitch of one of her videos with the caption POV. You told your boyfriend nobody's holding you hostage, so he left, and now months later you're trying to sabotage his new relationship. It got 200K views. Her comments section became a war zone. She had to turn them off on all her posts. Ashley and I met up again on Friday. She brought coffee and said, I'm really sorry I doubted you even for a day. You didn't doubt me, I said. You did your due diligence, that's smart. I just wish Torre hadn't put you in that position. So, Ashley looked nervous. Where does this leave us? Honestly, I'd been thinking about that. Part of me wondered if this drama was too much too soon. If Ashley would want to run for the hills, but she'd handled it with maturity. She'd asked questions. She'd listened to evidence. She'd given me a chance to explain. That's all I could ask for. I still want to get to know you, I said. If you're still interested, but I understand if this is too much baggage, she smiled. I've met your ex. She seems exhausting. You, on the other hand, seem like someone who just wants peace. I'm interested in the person who walked away from drama, not the person trying to create it. So yeah, we're still seeing each other, taking it slow, but it feels right. As for Torre, I blocked her on everything after the Instagram post. So did Ashley. I heard through the grapevine that she privated all her social media accounts and took a break from posting. Apparently the backlash was affecting her content creation income. Part of me, a very small part, feels bad about that. The rest of me remembers her sending crying voice messages to Ashley, trying to destroy something good before it even started, and I feel absolutely nothing. Torre wanted to see me get angry. She finally did. And now she knows exactly what happens when you push someone too far. I'm sleeping fine at night. My apartment is quiet. Ashley and I are planning a hiking trip next weekend. Work is good. Marco is teaching me how to make his famous chili. And Torre is finally completely out of my life. Honestly, best decision I ever made was walking through that exit she pointed out. Second best decision was making sure she couldn't follow me through it.
My fiancée sabotaged my career out of jealousy, then tried to sue me when I canceled the wedding. Now I'm picking up the pieces. I'm 31, male, working in tech. I didn't grow up with much, so my career was everything to me. I worked my ass off to get to where I am. I wasn't born into privilege, so I knew I had to hustle. After years of grinding it out, long hours, late nights, side gigs, I finally landed a senior role at a tech startup, which paid off big time. For the first time in my life, I was financially stable and not constantly stressed about my next paycheck. Things were solid. Then I met A. She came into my life just as everything seemed to be clicking into place. She was smart, funny, working in marketing, and seemed like she had her own career path mapped out. I thought she understood where I was coming from, that we were both driven people with goals. After about a year of dating, I proposed. We were in our late 20s, and it felt like the right time. Everything seemed perfect, but of course, that was just the surface. Looking back, the first signs were small. She'd make these little jabs about my job, but I didn't catch it at the time. It started off as stuff like, must be nice to sit behind a desk and get paid so much, or your job isn't even that hard. She'd say it with a laugh, so I just brushed it off. I figured, whatever, maybe she's just having a bad day. But over time, those comments didn't stop. They got worse. When I got a promotion that came with a huge raise, I was excited. This was a big deal. We'd been talking about buying a house, planning a future. When I told her about the promotion, I thought she'd be happy for me. Instead, she just shrugged and said, "Wow, everything always works out for you." Huh? No smile, no excitement. Just that. That stung, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I just let it go and figured she was stressed about something else. But things kept getting more tense between us. She'd pick fights about random stuff, accuse me of not spending enough time with her, even though I was busting my ass trying to balance work and our relationship. Then came the night before one of the biggest presentations of my career. I'd been prepping for weeks. This deal could land my company a major partnership, and I was running on fumes trying to get everything right. That night, A asked me to help her with something for her job. It wasn't urgent, just something she could easily handle on her own. I told her I was swamped and would help her tomorrow after my presentation. She flipped. "Everything's about your job, isn't it?" She snapped. "I'm always the one who has to take a back seat to whatever important thing you've got going on. Do you even care about us anymore?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried to explain, telling her that this presentation was a big deal, but she didn't want to hear it. She stormed off, slamming doors, calling me selfish. I was too exhausted to fight, so I just let it go, hoping things would calm down by the next day. The next morning, everything changed. I got to work, and the vibe was off immediately. People were whispering, avoiding eye contact. I had no idea what was going on until my boss called me into his office. Apparently, someone had sent an anonymous email to the higher-ups, accusing me of stealing ideas, faking reports, and all kinds of unethical shit. The accusations were detailed, way too detailed for someone outside the company to know. That's when it hit me. I knew all this stuff. She had access to my laptop, my work files, everything. And after the way she'd been acting, it didn't seem like a coincidence. I didn't want to believe it, though. I didn't want to think that the person I was about to marry could be this malicious. That night, I confronted her. "Did you send that email?" I asked, my voice shaking. I could barely get the words out. At first, she played dumb. "What email? What are you talking about?" But when I kept pressing, her whole demeanor changed. She crossed her arms, leaned against the kitchen counter, and with this dead look in her eyes, she just said, "Yeah, I did." I just stood there, stunned. Why? Why the hell would you do that? She didn't even flinch, because you needed to be knocked down a peg. You think you're so much better than everyone else? Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with your job, you'd realize how you treat people. I wanted you to see what it's like when things don't just fall into place for you. I couldn't even respond. I felt like my brain short-circuited. She was saying this like it was no big deal, like this was a reasonable thing to do. She didn't apologize, didn't even try to explain herself beyond that. She just stood there, waiting for me to say something. I called off the wedding on the spot, told her to pack her shit and leave. I couldn't even look at her. She started crying, saying she didn't mean it, that she was just stressed and felt like I was leaving her behind. She begged me to reconsider, saying we could work it out, but I was done. That's when the real crazy started. First, her family came at me. Her mom, her sisters, even her dad, all blowing up my phone, calling me a heartless bastard for ruining her life. They all bought into her sob story that I'd left her high and dry out of nowhere. I blocked every single one of them. I wasn't about to explain myself to people who had no idea what had really happened. Then, I started pulling every manipulative trick she could think of. First, she tried the sympathy card. She emailed me, claiming she was pregnant. I had no reason to believe her, but it was still enough to make me pause. I asked her to meet up so we could talk about it, and when we met, I knew it was bullshit. She couldn't keep her story straight. She didn't have any proof. No doctor's appointments. Nothing. I told her to show me a pregnancy test, and she blew up again, accusing me of not trusting her. Why would I trust you after what you did? I said, barely keeping my anger in check. She stormed off after that, and I thought maybe that was the end of it. But of course it wasn't. Next, she started showing up at my work. Not inside the office, but waiting for me in the parking lot after hours. She'd corner me, acting like she just wanted to talk. She apologized over and over again, but it was the same bullshit. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was just sorry it didn't work out the way she planned. When I made it clear I wasn't going back to her, she tried a different approach. She started telling me that we'd spent too much time together to just throw it all away. She'd bring up the wedding planning, the money we'd spent, and how we've come so far. As if that was supposed to make me forget about how she tried to tank my career out of jealousy. When that didn't work, she tried to get my friends involved. A few of them reached out, saying she'd contacted them, asking them to talk to me. She spun the whole thing as if I was being unreasonable, that I was throwing away our relationship over a moment of weakness on her part. She painted herself as the victim, the one who was hurting the most. Then came the most desperate move. A mutual friend told me I was trying to organize an intervention, like I was the one who needed help. She wanted to get a group of our friends together to talk me down and convince me to take her back. She had completely lost it by this point. But the final straw? She tried to sue me for the cost of the wedding. Yep. After all that, she had the nerve to send me a letter from her lawyer, claiming I owed her money for the deposits, the venue, the dress, everything. She was essentially demanding a payout because I called off the wedding. Never mind the fact that she was the one who tried to destroy my job. Never mind that I'd been the one footing most of the bill. She honestly believed she was entitled to some kind of compensation. I got my lawyer involved, and thankfully it didn't go anywhere. But the fact that she even tried was mind-blowing. She genuinely thought she could screw me over. And when that didn't work, she wanted me to pay for it. That was the last I heard from her. After the legal threats didn't work, she finally stopped trying to reach out. I've spent the last few months focusing on work, on rebuilding the trust one lost with my coworkers after the whole email fiasco. Luckily, my boss had my back, and everything blew over after a thorough investigation. But it left a mark. I've moved on, but I won't lie. The whole thing messed with my head. I'm a lot more guarded now, more cautious about who I let in. You think you know someone, you think you're building a future together, and then they pull something like this. It's like a slap in the face, realizing the person you were going to marry was secretly rooting for your failure. So yeah, that's my story. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. My girlfriend demanded I sell my house for her surgery, then cheated and tried to forge the sale. Now I'm finally free. I'm 34, male, and I own a small business, a house I paid off, and generally like to think I've got my life together. I'm not rich by any stretch, but I'm comfortable. It took years of grinding, saving, and discipline to get to where I am now. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon, so every dollar and every square foot of my house means something. This place isn't just some investment. It's home, and it nearly got taken from me because of one person. She and I have been dating for about 2 years. At first, things were great. She was fun, attractive, always up for a good time. But after the honeymoon phase ended, I started noticing little things. She always seemed to want more. More clothes, more trips, more status. It was like she saw life as a competition, and I had to be her ticket to the next level. I didn't mind treating her here and there, but after a while, it felt like I was her aim. She had expensive taste, luxury bags, fine dining, designer shoes. If something wasn't the best or the latest, she wasn't interested. I should have seen it coming, but I guess I was too deep in it. When you're with someone for long enough, you get used to their quirks, even if they're red flags. Then one night, after dinner, she dropped a bomb on me. We were sitting on the couch, and she casually brought up plastic surgery, as if she was talking about buying a new outfit. I've been thinking, I really want to get some work done, she said, scrolling through Instagram like she was just talking about her next hair appointment. You know, a nose job, maybe lip fillers, a boob job, just a few things. I wasn't shocked that she wanted it. She'd mentioned it in passing before. But what came next hit me like a truck. I found this amazing surgeon in LA. He's like the best. It'll cost about $40,000, but it's totally worth it. I paused. $40,000? She might as well have said $400. It was an absurd amount of money. Yeah, good luck with that, I said, half joking. But she wasn't laughing. Well, actually, I was thinking you could sell the house. I stared at her, thinking I must have misheard. Sell my house? Yeah, I mean, you don't really need all this space. We could rent somewhere smaller, and with the money from selling it, we could do my surgeries and have plenty left over for a new place. It's an investment in us. I just sat there dumbfounded. She was seriously asking me to sell my house. My house, the place I worked for years to own, so she could get cosmetic surgery. No, I said, shaking my head slowly. There's no way in hell I'm selling my house for that. She looked at me like I had just insulted her whole family. Are you serious? Dead serious. You're asking me to sell my house for something that's completely cosmetic. That's ridiculous. Her face twisted into this pouty, annoyed look. I thought you loved me. I thought you'd do anything for me. I do love you. But this is my house we're talking about. I'm not selling it. Period. She huffed and crossed her arms, glaring at me like I'd just ruined her entire life. You know, you're being really selfish right now. Selfish? You're asking me to sell the place I live for a nose job, see? Come on. She stormed out of the room, grabbed her stuff, and left without another word. I didn't hear from her for a couple of days. I figured she was just cooling off, and honestly, I was relieved to have some space. It gave me time to really think about how crazy the whole situation was. But when she did come back, it was like nothing had happened. She acted all sweet, brought over takeout, and tried to play it off like we just had a little argument. I wasn't having it. We need to talk about what happened the other night, I said, not even touching the food she brought. She sighed, clearly annoyed. You're still hung up on that? I was just thinking about our future, about how we can be better. Better by me selling my house? You seriously don't see how crazy that sounds? She rolled her eyes. Fine. I was emotional. But don't you think I deserve to feel good about myself? I'm not saying you don't, but I'm not selling my house for plastic surgery. It's not happening. And then things started to change. Subtly at first. She became distant, started going out more, staying late with friends, making excuses about work dinners. At first, I didn't think much of it. We all have our own lives, right? But then I started noticing things that didn't add up. A few nights in a row, she'd come home late, avoiding eye contact, acting off. Then, one night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter when she went to the bathroom. It buzzed. I glanced at it, thinking it might be her mom or something. But the name wasn't one I recognized. And the message wasn't something a friend would send. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. I felt this sinking feeling in my gut. Against my better judgment, I opened the thread. It wasn't just one message. It was dozens. And it wasn't just flirting. It was clear they'd been seeing each other. And it had been going on for a while. She came out of the bathroom, saw me standing there with her phone in my hand, and froze. What the hell is this? I asked, my voice steady, though I was boiling inside. She tried to play dumb. What are you talking about? I held up the phone. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Who the hell is this guy? She walked over, snatched the phone out of my hand, and glared at me. You had no right to go through my phone. Are you serious right now? That's your response? You've been cheating on me, and you're mad I looked at your phone? She crossed her arms, still glaring. Maybe if you gave me what I wanted, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere. I couldn't believe it. She was actually blaming me for her cheating. You gotta be kidding me. You cheat on me, and it's my fault because I didn't sell my phone. You sold my house for your damn surgery? Are you even hearing yourself? She just shrugged, completely unfazed. You weren't giving me what I needed. I stood there, staring at her, realizing I didn't even know the person standing in front of me anymore. Get out. She looked taken aback. What? You heard me. Get your stuff and get out. We're done. For a second, I thought she was going to argue, but then she just shrugged again, like it was no big deal. She grabbed her purse, threw some clothes into a bag, and left without even looking back. I thought that was the end of it. But, oh no, she wasn't done. A week later, I got a call from a realtor. Apparently, she had gone behind my back and tried to list my house for sale. She had forged my signature on some documents and had actually started the process of getting it listed on the market. The realtor thought it was strange that I hadn't contacted them directly, so they reached out to confirm. When I found out, I saw red. Not only had she cheated on me, but she had also tried to steal my house. It was insane. I immediately called the cops and filed a report for fraud. I wasn't about to let her get away with this. She was lucky I didn't press charges beyond that. Part of me wanted to just wash my hands of the whole thing, but it didn't stop there. A few days after I shut down her little house selling scheme, she started texting me again. At first, it was all apologies, claiming she made a mistake and that she loved me. When I ignored her, she shifted gears and started playing the victim, telling me she was struggling, that she was about to get evicted, that she had nowhere to go. I know you still care about me. Please, just let me crash with you for a little while. I have nowhere else. I didn't respond. I was done with her games. But she kept pushing, showing up at my place with takeout like we could just eat dinner and pretend none of this had happened. Can we just talk? She said, standing at my door with this fake smile plastered on her face. I know you miss me. I looked at her, not even bothering to hide my frustration. We have nothing to talk about. You cheated. You tried to sell my house behind my back. We're done, see? She switched tactics immediately. You're really going to throw everything away? Just like that? We've been through so much together. I stepped back, keeping the door half closed. Yeah, I'm throwing it away. You did that the second you went behind my back. She glared at me, but eventually she left. But even after that, she kept trying. I started hearing from mutual friends that she was spreading rumors about me, telling people I was the one who had cheated, that I had kicked her out unfairly, and even that I owed her money. It was absurd. People who knew me didn't believe her, but the rumors still did some damage. I had clients calling, asking if everything was all right, wondering if the stories she was spreading were true. She knew where to hit me. My reputation. My business. That's when I knew she wasn't going to stop. She wasn't just trying to get back into my life. She was trying to ruin it. I confronted her once, hoping maybe, just maybe, she had some shred of decency left. Why are you doing this? I asked, cornering her outside a coffee shop where I knew she liked to hang out. She had her sunglasses on, sipping some overpriced latte like she didn't have a care in the world. She looked up at me with that same smug expression I'd grown to hate. You should have just given me what I wanted. You wouldn't be in this mess if you'd listened. I laughed bitterly. You think you're punishing me? You think spreading lies is going to get me to take you back? She shrugged. It's not about getting back with you anymore. It's about making sure you realize what you lost. I stood there, speechless for a second, realizing there was no point in arguing with her. She was delusional, living in some twisted version of reality where she was the victim and I was the villain. I wasn't going to play her game anymore. That's fine, I said. Do what you need to do, but stay the hell away from me. I walked away, feeling lighter. It wasn't about winning or losing at that point. I was done. Done with her manipulation, her lies, and her need to control everything around her. After that, I tightened up everything. I locked down my social media, made sure my business was ironclad, and started rebuilding. Slowly, the rumors died out. People stopped asking questions, and the chaos she had stirred up started to fade. She moved on to some other guy, from what I heard, some dude with more money than sense. I almost felt bad for him, but then again, he'd figure it out eventually, just like I did. A few months later, I was sitting in my living room, in the house I almost lost because of her, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. I wasn't dealing with the stress of her bullshit. It was just me, in the place I worked so hard to own, enjoying the quiet. I'm not bitter. If anything, I learned a lot from the whole mess. I learned that you can't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you want things to work. I learned that someone who truly loves you will never ask you to give up the things you've built for yourself. And most of all, I learned that it's okay to walk away from something, even if it's hard, even if it hurts, if it means protecting your peace. I'm not in a rush to jump into anything serious again. Maybe one day I'll find someone who gets it, someone who's not just looking for what I can give them, but actually values what we can build together. But for now, I'm good. I've got my business, my house, and my life back. And that's enough for me. So yeah, that's my story. It's a lesson I had to learn the hard way, but I'm better for it. If there's one piece of advice I'd give to anyone, it's this: trust your gut. If something feels off, don't wait until it blows up in your face. Stand your ground, and don't let anyone take what you've worked so hard to build. And if someone ever asks you to sell your house for a boob job, run. Trust me, run. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.